Hello, Internet. Hope all is going well. As you might have guessed from the totally not clickbait title and thumbnail, we're taking a look at whether vinyl records are bad for the environment. Human beings have done much worse things that are terrible for them, and have known to be terrible for them for centuries. So how could our entertainment media possibly hurt us and the environment in any meaningful way? Let's take a closer look at the grooves of the situation. First, why exactly are people still listening to vinyl? I'm sure you've heard of the near miraculous comeback of vinyl a million times by now. We have the internet where you can get nearly any kind of music you want instantaneously. It can't just be nostalgia, real or sold either. There are so many people who never grew up with this medium who are now embracing it. It seems to be more than just capitalism resurrecting something from the dead to make a profit once again. Arguments about sound quality have been had to death. Talk of cheap turntables have been had to death. The evidence is quite clear on all those fronts. Vinyl records don't have as much sound capabilities as a CD. As long as you don't go too cheap, a low-cost turntable isn't going to chew up your records, so why is vinyl thriving? In a word, ritual. In an age where there is increasingly little to interact with in terms of physical art, records just happen to be a cheap and highly tactile experience most people can afford to get into. According to a study done by the Audio Communication Group, people get a certain aesthetic experience from vinyl that they can't get with other mediums. From seeing the grooves on the record, holding the album artwork, and even placing it on the turntable make it a more involved activity. What vinyl lacks in audio fidelity, it makes up in a ritual, aesthetic experience. In an age when Apple can just shut down their entire music service and force the loss of entire music libraries, it's understandable why some people want something that the corporate world can't touch. If the server is shut down and the music you listen to is on those servers, not only can your music be removed on a whim, but it can even restrict what type of music you get to listen to in the first place. You don't have the same issue with vinyl. Unless you lose them or damage them, your record will still play on any turntable, most likely for the rest of your life. Digital technology is a benefit here, ironically, as it allows you to search for any kind of music you want. This includes the physical kind. Everybody from general shopping sites like Amazon to specialty sites like Discogs sell vinyl. In an age where digital technology makes everything so impermanent, the fact that you can have a shelf full of art that you personally resonate with is comforting and reassuring. But at what cost does this immutability come at? The idea that music fans are simply going to return to only buying physical media seems like a stretch. In ye olden days of the early to mid-2000s, most people only bought a CD for a few songs, or braved LimeWire and hoped they didn't have to reinstall Windows XP all over again. It seems more likely that people are going to continue using a combination of digital and physical media for music in the foreseeable future. Okay, so this part of the video might be more accurately titled The Environmental Impact of Plastic Production in General, but I'm trying to keep it focused on just vinyl.
But Daedalus, records aren't made of plastic. They're made of vinyl. It's in the name. That's what gives them a unique, warm, rich sound that digital trash could never.
Okay, audio fool, look. Or listen, this is just a video loop you're watching. Vinyl records since at least the 1950s have been made with what's called PVC. PVC stands for polyvinyl chloride. This material is one of the most widely produced plastics in the entire world. Records before then were made with shellac and usually ran at 78 RPM. These newfangled vinyl records can run at the much slower 33 RPM, 45 RPM for singles and B-sides, allowing for more music on each side, and were nowhere near as brittle as shellac records. With even further development, they could also hold stereo sound. Most importantly, they were cheap to make. Each record is essentially a soft copy of a metal master. Right about the same time as vinyl records started to become popular, PVC was being used for all kinds of things in general. By the 1970s, though, there was an increasing awareness of the environmental problems that we were causing in the world with plastic. Some of the first studies, ones I could find anyway, date back to 1976. Though the study I'm citing was more concerned about cars, it explicitly mentions PVC as their main concern. This study suggested a link between the development of a rare cancer in PVC production workers to the PVC production process, the main culprit being the VCM, or vinyl chloride monomer, that's produced as a result of PVC production. Throughout the decades, more studies concerned with the effects of plastics emerged. In 2014, the Journal of Toxicological Sciences did a study on the effect that VOCs, volatile organic compounds, that are found in PVC might have on worms. The study found that the off-gassing of VOCs found in PVC and its popular alternative, PEVA, negatively affected the oxygen intake of the worms permanently. If this already wasn't yikes material enough, the study said that this off-gassing can occur during normal use or even when in storage. This was further worsened when the PVC items in question were used in an indoor context. Essentially, if you lock yourself in an airtight room with nothing but plastic items in it, it might adversely affect your health. And that's just PVC in general. This is to speak nothing of how the production of physical media requires energy to make and transport it to different locations. We haven't even factored in the production of cardboard sleeves and the paper liner notes that accompany the record. That is a bit outside the scope of this video though, so let's stick with the plastic part of it. Even though the LPs you own might take no more energy to store or play them, they still required energy to be produced. So this all seems bad. There's a ton of externalities involved in the production of these things that exposes lots of people to different harmful chemicals just in the production side alone. So let's abandon ritual and aesthetics and go all digital. That's a greener solution, right? On the surface, streaming seems to have every advantage over physical media. Higher audio fidelity, instant access to nearly any type of music you want, slick, cross-platform interfaces, the ability to expand your music taste far beyond what you could than just collecting records. What's not to love? Aside from the aforementioned ability of corporations to control what it is that you can have access to, there seems to be none. There are even many platforms you can choose from that offer not just streaming, but community elements as well. Bandcamp lets you build collections of everything you've purchased for other users to see. You can follow other fans, artists, buy merch from the artists, and Bandcamp even gives them a larger chunk of the profits than most other streaming services. What's more, pretty much anyone can upload music to Bandcamp. They even press vinyl records for artists if enough people pre-order an album. Oh wait, I think this is in the wrong part of the video. There's even more options with services such as YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, Tidal, Apple, and so on. Given the digital nature of these platforms and the algorithm, you can experience an endless supply of music that it thinks you'll like. Nice, clean, minimalist aesthetics while the world of music is being pumped to you through your earbuds. It also means no more scrounging through dusty bins at the record store, if you still have one. And no more rubbing elbows with the kind of nerds who will still go to a record store. All I need is this rose gold iPhone to do everything. All this lack of stuff in your life might make you feel like you're doing good and not being a mindless consumer, but how much of this is real? I mean, that rose iGold device isn't just a brick that accesses the internet. It's a complicated brick that accesses the internet. It has a ton of constituent parts made with materials from all over the world. What's more, it needs the infamously low energy using infrastructure known as the internet to access anything. So, is it any better than a plastic grooved disc? As always, it's more complicated than this thing is good or this thing is bad. There's almost no issue when it comes to environmental pollution that you can neatly separate from one another. What about all the instruments that have to be made to supply the nearly endless amount of music? Do you really need another piece in that modular rack? How many guitars is enough? How many times do you need to upgrade your PC for the horsepower needed to make that new album? What about all the fuel that's required to transport all of that stuff? What about all the energy and resources that are spent on people going to shows? All the gas, food, electricity, and additional infrastructure required for such a production environment to exist. How much environmental damage does that iPhone really cause? Again, it's not easy to neatly separate things when everything in the modern world is so deeply intertwined. You can't just minimalist lifestyle yourself out of having some impact upon the environment. Nor should you blame yourself for just existing in a system when there are clearly entities that are responsible for more pollution than your choice of music delivery ever could be. Still, it's easy to forget just how much goes into manufacturing and digital services. Just because all of the software is virtual, the hardware still has to physically exist somewhere. All those streaming platforms have all those songs backed up on servers. Those servers have to stay up 24/7 for instant access to work. Even if you were to only download your music, you still have to have a server running 24/7 to download from, and a device to store and play them back on. The materials required for modern electronics manufacturing, too, are rife with human rights abuses, environmental degradation, and a ton of waste as well. It's worth mentioning, too, that artists often don't even make much money per stream. They usually make less than $1 per song. That's fine if you're a big artist who gets millions of plays, but smaller artists might struggle to compete and survive in such an environment. So, streaming definitely isn't green either. Well then, what is? Are we going to have to go back to the ways of the ancients and just pass down songs orally to eliminate our paper impact and be as green as we can without inducing our own death? I certainly hope not. The last time I tried singing "O Comely," I was banned from avocado night at the local dive bar. So, what do? We can find better ways to produce and distribute, well, everything. We can start with finding more sustainable methods of production. Not making records out of PVC is probably a start. There are some manufacturers experimenting with PET plastics and injection molding to make new records. This would facilitate the recycling of terrible, unwanted, and damaged records much easier. Making plastics out of something other than fossil fuel sources would probably be the best thing ultimately, though.
But I don't want plastic that degrades. What about the collector value?
Well, we could make sustainable plastics that don't degrade if we wanted to. Making everything disposable in the future probably isn't the greatest idea either. Making something over and over again that we could just make once or in limited quantities would be a better use of energy. It would seem to defeat the purpose of making it out of more sustainable materials in the first place if we allow it to degrade. Again, those things can't be neatly separated from each other. So, what about the internet? The manufacture of electronics is a messy industry, and I honestly have no idea how to make it more sustainable. Another video for another day. When it comes to the power side of things, it's a bit more straightforward. Renewable energy is probably the biggest thing we can do to make the internet greener right now. Reducing the amount of energy even needed to deliver content is the next step. Making search algorithms more efficient and file sizes smaller to reduce bandwidth demand probably another good idea too. What ultimately might be the most environmentally friendly thing we can do is to think more about the materials that make up the world around us and where they come from. So, to sum up, are vinyl records bad for the environment? It's complicated. There are a ton of external factors that are involved, and you have to weigh them carefully to understand the benefits and costs of each of them and their alternatives. If that answer disappointed you, then yes and no, I don't know. I listen to cassette tapes, I don't own any records. Anyway, I hope you liked the video. The semester is almost over, so more videos are coming down the tubes. All the sources and music used for this video are linked down in the description. So, until next time, later internet.
Does that mean you didn't really like the champagne? No, I did. Too much.